Привет! So is Russia about to withdraw its support from the Assad government in Syria? And what does this mean potentially for the Russo-Ukrainian war and in particular Ukraine? So over the last week or so, there have been rapid advances in Syria by opposition forces to the central government led by Assad. That is a government that has been consistently backed by Russia, as well as Iran, Hezbollah, and the Syrian civil war is an extremely complicated affair. There are lots of different actors: Turkey, the US, the Kurds, lots of different opposition groups to Assad's government. So for this video, I'm just going to focus on the potential consequences for the Russo-Ukrainian war rather than go into detail about the Syrian civil war. So these opposition forces have seized a significant number of towns in northern, because we can say northwestern Syria, including the major city of Aleppo. They are now coming down the road from Aleppo towards Damascus, the capital. There are some key cities on the way there, including Hama and Homs. And actually, if they get all the way to Homs, it would cut off part of the coast of Syria from the capital Damascus, and that part that is on the coast is actually a core support region for Assad and his government, so this would be a huge deal. Russia has several airfields and a port in that region, so in terms of Russia's ability to project power in the region, this is a huge issue. They may be forced to leave Syria completely and cut their support for the Assad regime if they feel that he is unable to maintain control in the country and in particular this region. What does that mean for Ukraine? Well, it means that Russia is facing more and more tough choices to make in terms of how it's able to project its power outside of Russia. We have in Georgia in the last week significant protests, perhaps the beginning of a Euromaidan-style revolution. The current government and prime minister in Georgia are seen as leaning towards Russia, perhaps even being pro-Russian, even though that sounds a bit odd in Georgia, where most people are not in favor of joining Russia's sphere of influence. They want to join the European Union. However, a bit similar to the Euromaidan revolution, where the government also said that they're going to sign an association agreement with the European Union. That's Viktor Yanukovych. Here in Georgia, they've campaigned on in the same manner. However, when they've been elected, they then have decided to change course, and at the moment, the Georgian government has suspended the accession talks with the European Union. I have another video about that from yesterday. So Russia is facing increasing difficult choices. They now have to decide whether to back the Assad regime. Assad has many regional supporters: Iran, Hezbollah, and other militias in Iraq and elsewhere that are now apparently sending troops to Syria in an attempt to prop up his government. However, Russia has to decide whether they want to invest more resources into Syria at a time when obviously they are fighting the Russo-Ukrainian war. Part of Russia is currently occupied by Ukraine in the Kursk Oblast, so they are fighting Europe's biggest war since World War II and losing an astonishing number of troops and materiel on a daily basis. It has actually accelerated in the last few months, perhaps because Donald Trump is going to be inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States in the second half of January, that they feel like after that, then they will start to negotiate. It's something that is one possibility that they're trying to push as far as possible into Ukraine and capture as much territory as they can do in spite of the massive cost. And the number of resources that Russia has invested in Syria are not huge if we look at what they're investing into trying to capture Ukraine, it is just a small fraction of that. However, it is particularly important in terms of global prestige that Russia does have this ability to project its power outside of Russia and a little bit further outside of its normal area of influence, sphere of influence. And losing Syria would be another sign of potential global retreat. Instead of becoming this new superpower and re-establishing the empire, as Putin has been attempting to do since, we could say, 2008 with the invasion of Georgia, and perhaps we could say earlier with his dealings in other countries, like in Ukraine when we had the Orange Revolution in 2004, having to abandon an important ally outside of Russia's direct sphere of influence or traditional sphere of influence would signal that kind of lack of power projection. And perhaps even the Ukrainian secret services or special forces have been to a certain extent involved in assisting the opposition forces that are now on the advance in Syria. It would certainly be in Ukraine's interest to see Russian soldiers either being killed in action or captured in action or injured in action in Syria, so that they were removed from the equation. And if Russia also loses military material like airplanes, rocket systems, baby ships, because they have a port there on the coast, in addition to obviously suffering in terms of their ability to project power and their global prestige. Difficult choices for the Kremlin. They have potentially a Euromaidan in Georgia, as said, potentially the collapse of a key ally in the Middle East. Hezbollah and Iran also been weakened by Israel with the wars in Gaza and in Lebanon over the last, it's now probably 15 months, and they are losing troops, materiel, and money at an alarming rate with the war in Ukraine, with their invasions of Ukraine. So definitely an extra headache for the Kremlin and for Vladimir Putin. So good news for Ukraine with respect to that. The potential fall of Assad or Russia having to invest a significant number of resources to prop up his government in Damascus plays in Ukraine's favor. So I'll leave this video at that. I'm not going to focus very much on Syria on this channel. We're looking at geopolitics from the point of view of the Russo-Ukrainian war, in particular from Ukraine's point of view. And I will see you in the next video. До побачення. Слава Україні!